Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question without notice is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, do you share the view that the Chinese nuclear tests are somehow more acceptable because they're being conducted in China's own backyard? Are you satisfied the Chinese people have made an informed and democratic choice to have these tests conducted in their midst? Why won't the parliamentary delegation led by Mr. Bilney also visit Beijing to voice our protests against nuclear testing there? And Prime Minister, are the environmental and health dangers posed by the Chinese tests as serious as those posed by the French tests, or are the Chinese destinations somehow radiation-free?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure what imputations the honourable member's trying to make. I mean, if it is that he thinks that the French tests are somehow relatively less objectionable, is that the point he's trying to make? Mr. Speaker, what the government has said right through this about all of this, it has opposed consistently French testing in the Pacific, always. You haven't. Your side of politics, the one you used to belong to, has supported French testing and refused to sign the Treaty of Rarotonga, which was the treaty which opposed, above the Pacific Island states, opposed to testing of nuclear weapons in the Pacific. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, in an apologia for his own craven support of these things in the past, said, "Oh, that was before the Cold War finished," as if, Mr. Speaker, the state of the French nuclear arsenal had much to do with the Cold War by the middle of the 1980s. Now, Mr. Speaker, the objection that the government has always had to the tests by France, first of all, it's by democracy. It's by democracy. No, it's an affront to every nation, a greater affront with a democracy like France decides that it will test, but in a part of the world it's had the privilege of having stewardship of. That is, Mr. Speaker, in contravention of the wishes of the people that live in that area and in flagrant disregard of the long-term risks that might come from it. That's why. And also because the interest of a democracy these days should be against the proliferation of weapons. We know there is already a stock in terms of these forces, defence forces, a stock of competent weapons in the hands of the United States, France, Britain, Russia. The risk today is now proliferation of weapons. It's a proliferation risk. It's that which France offends by saying to all the would-be proliferators, "Don't worry, we're still having a few bangs ourselves." That's the problem with them. That's the problem with them. As well he knows. And here's France, which is now ringed by 14 nuclear reactors of identical design to the Chernobyl reactor, which have inherent design faults, which are poorly operated, which present a genuine health threat and risk to Western Europe. And instead of concentrating on dismantling those reactors and replacing them with light water reactors or safer reactors or coal-fired stations, what's it doing? It's worrying about the fact that it suffered the ignominy of the Nazis marching through Paris in 1940. This is what this is all about. It'll never happen again. So let's have a bigger bang at Mururoa to make clear that it won't happen again. That's what it's about, rather than France engaging the rest of the world on things that really matter. That is stopping the diversion of nuclear materials, stopping the scientists from the old Soviet Union selling their wares around the world, stopping some of these smaller nations like Pakistan and Iraq and others from developing weapons, and making certain that there isn't the diversion of these materials. That's the objection, Mr. Speaker. The other objection, of course, is to China. We have made it clear as day for a long period of time, every time, that we object to China testing nuclear weapons. But, Mr. Speaker, at least their tests are on their own soil. No, Mr. Speaker, well, what's that, a commentary on Chinese democracy? So what do you want me to do? Talk about the rise of the Chinese Communist Party in the 40s or something? I mean, What's that invoke? What's that invoke from me? You know, a little case study about Chiang Kai-shek and how it shouldn't have happened. Now, Mr. Speaker,
Order, the member for more.
one thing for sure, if the Liberal Party treats Zheng Xiaomin and the current leadership of China in the way in which it treated Dau Moi of Vietnam recently, then our influence in that country, or their influence in that country, will be exactly where their influence is with Vietnam, zero. So, Mr. Speaker, as far as we're concerned, there'll be no discrimination and treatment by us. We are flatly opposed to the further testing of these weapons. It's unnecessary. We'll say it wherever we have the opportunity, and we'll make our protest as fierce with the Chinese as we have with the French, Mr. Speaker. But the French, of course, you know, I noticed that when I did an interview with Liberation, the editor said, "Don't you know this is French territory?" And I said, "Oh yes, there's Polynesians all the way down from Aix-en-Provence, Carcassonne. They pop out of the woodwork in the Loire Valley. You know, you see them, they're doing the Polynesian dances in the back end of the Loire Valley, in the walled city of Carcassonne, in the lovely humidity of Aix-en-Provence. There are Polynesians everywhere."